All right. Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to the Quality Hub, chatting with ISO experts. I'm your host, Xavier Francis, and I'm here today with Scott Dawson, President of Core Business Solutions. Glad you could join us.
Thanks, X. Glad to be here.
It's fun having you here. It really is. And I really do appreciate you taking the time for this. Well, let's dive in. Let me start with the first question. What are some additional challenges when it comes to implementing CMMC?
Well, I thought it was going to be complicated to explain ISO 9001 back in the day and what it means and what are they trying to get at. And I was invested enough into it to join the committee that helps write that standard.
Right.
The TC tag to 176 here in the US.
Right.
So that I could understand technically what the language means.
Right.
When I got to NIST, it was a whole nother world of I'm more lost than ever.
Yeah.
Because each word and each phrase and each statement brings these implications, these technical implications that, first of all, I don't even understand the words. But secondly,
not to the degree that
I
you
do
need
not
to know.
understand the technology. I do not understand the different products or systems or configurations that might then be implemented in order to meet this particular requirement.
Well, so not only that, you need to know not just what it means or what it does, but you need to be able to analyze it in some cases and be able to understand the data.
Yeah. And then implement and manage your systems, your IT systems, at that level.
Yep.
So that you maintain that level of security. So you're talking about a fairly advanced level of IT expertise.
Right.
However, most small businesses, which I think probably most of our listeners come from small businesses, don't have deep pockets. They don't have IT departments.
Right.
They're lucky to have an IT guy or an IT gal.
We know a guy.
Yeah. Or we hire somebody down the street to come in and work on our computers. Yep. Or the boss's nephew comes in on Saturday, and that's IT.
Yeah.
So I'd say challenge number one is just the sheer complexity of these requirements.
Understandably so.
And the technical expertise needed. I guess second one is, I indicated earlier, this stuff has to be maintained. You have to maintain that level of security. You have to maintain the documentation that describes how you're maintaining that security. You have to maintain the training for your employees. You have to maintain your facility so it has certain security protections built in. So this is not a once and done thing. This is an ongoing requirement that brings with it not just the possibility of having a finding during an audit, which ISO is kind of that way. You can have a finding during an audit.
Right. And then you can go back and fix it.
And you can go back and fix it. That isn't going to be the case with CMMC. You have to, it's a 100% score you've got to get on the assessment.
So it's pass or fail.
Pass or fail.
So one small finding.
You could be starting over.
You'd be starting from fresh, at least with an assessment.
Yeah. Well, then the second piece of that is if a security incident were to occur, say a breach, and the government starts to investigate and they discover that the reason there was a breach is that you weren't maintaining the protections that you said you were you had implemented during your assessment, and now you kind of let that slide, or you didn't upgrade at the right time, or you didn't train all the people that are now working with CUI, then you're talking about liability. And other parts of the government might start to show up and have some conversations with you. So there is definitely contractual and legal obligations here that the government is using the power of the government.
Right.
I was going to say encourage as if it's a friendly thing, but it's a push these requirements because of the risk to our country, to risk to our soldiers and our airmen.
Yep.
And, people's lives could be at stake here. Yep. Our national security could be at stake. So there's a lot riding on these, this necessity to provide adequate security for this information.
It's not, I didn't pay my taxes on time and I owe a penalty. It's, this could put people in harm's way.
It could put people in harm's way.
And entire systems either. I mean, that's also if you look at it from a system, let's say a system, they now have to figure out, one, is it even feasible to fix what people know?
Yeah.
Two, do we have to redesign things to overcome it, all because of a slip up?
Yeah. So complexity, ongoing maintenance. And then I think the cultural shift. We talk a lot about culture changes in ISO. to implement a quality culture. I know in our podcast series,
Yes.
we've talked about how important it is for leadership to be involved and to set certain expectations and to implement certain policies and to reinforce certain behaviors and these type of things. And that's all vitally important for a successful quality program.
It is.
It's equally vitally important for a security program, especially one that has this level of security involved.
Yep.
So it's raising awareness of security and the need to utilize information in the proper way, to access information using, the right protocols, or only access it when you're at this workstation that's protected, or only access it when you're in this part of the building.
Yep.
Even if you print this information, which obviously companies still need hard copies in some cases, where can that paper go and who can see it and where does it get filed at the end of
or destroyed
at the end of its use. So there are cultural things that need to be implemented. Generally important that the whole company is involved, but if you have only part of your company that is working on the defense contracts, then you could narrow it down. I know we're going to talk next week about that, but you could narrow down who needs to be involved. Therefore, you could put a lot of this cultural change attention to that particular group. But security culture should be part of every business now anyway. So I find that, these requirements help us protect our business generally, not only protect these government documents that we handle.
Right. Well, and it's ever evolving. So constant training.
So
that culture of this isn't a one and done. We're going to continue.
So you have to tackle the technical side of it. You have to maintain these things, which means resources, and you have to implement certain changes in your culture so that people are, daily, hourly, minute by minute following these policies, because it only takes one slip up to then make information vulnerable to the outside.
Yep. And you have to report it.
And then you have to report it. So, there's a lot to this. And small companies who don't have deep pockets, as we said, don't have IT departments or security departments, what are they to do?
Right.
How do they face this? Or do they just walk away from defense contracts altogether? And I think there will be a number of companies that say, I don't do enough defense business to make this worth it.
Right.
And that's a legitimate business decision.
Yeah, it is.
No one's casting dispersions or giving you the stink eye or any of that.
Right.
If you choose to say this is beyond what our company should be investing our time and money into, so we're not going to pursue any more defense contracts. But if you want those lucrative defense contracts, this is going to be the change you're going to have to accept.
Absolutely. I know you talked about it a little bit with who needs to be certified, who this is going to affect, but could you just reiterate some of those and maybe touch on some other ones you may have not mentioned?
In all cases, a defense contract starts with a prime contractor. That prime contractor is the company that has the direct contract with the government.
So it might be a Boeing or Grumman or something like that.
Yeah, and it could be smaller companies that get defense contracts too. So anybody with a contract directly with the government, referred to as a prime contractor.
Gotcha.
Then when they then turn around and get assistance and help from other companies on that contract, they're referred to as subcontractors. And so the prime contractor might hire a number of subcontractors. A Boeing might have thousands of subcontractors on one contract.
Right.
And those subcontractors find these DFARS clauses pop up in their contract too. And then it flows down through all the tiers of the defense industrial base. So everybody who's manufacturing or servicing a defense contractor, it affects. There's another aspect of this, and that is those companies that are servicing the IT systems of these companies. And if you're using a third party to service your IT, you hire the company down the street to service your computers. They too will have to be certified because they have access to that CUI. You're going to need your IT company to have access to most everything in your network because they're maintaining it, right? But those managed service providers or MSPs, if you're using a third party for your IT support, those MSPs will need certification. That's a big deal because
That is.
many of them are not at all aware that they somehow are servicing a company that's in the defense industrial base.
And you can't say, well, that's not happening. Literally, you hand a computer that has CUI to an MSP to update an operating system, fix something. They now have access to that. So it's not just, well, they're not looking at the data. No, but they have access to it.
And your MSP will have to be certified to the same level you are.
Yep.
That'll have to be part of your criteria in years to come
Mm-hmm.
for when you hire someone to work on your IT systems, your computer systems. Are you in fact CMMC certified to, let's say, level 2?
Right.
Because our company's level 2, you have to be. It'll just become a normal part of the qualification of an MSP. And then if you're using cloud service providers, like you're using Microsoft 365.
Right.
That's a cloud service that you purchase from Microsoft. Microsoft will then have to be certified.
Yeah.
And they have higher levels of qualification called FedRAMP that they also have to be comply with. So if your CUI is stored or transmitted using a cloud provider, then that company has certain qualifications it will have to meet.
Right.
And you're going to be on the hook. If you're the company that's using those services, you're on the hook to ensure that your IT MSP or your cloud service providers are qualified.
Yep. And not that they're not, but it might be, oh, we need to get the government version of this. So, hey, we're here for another 50% on top of that or more.
Oh, yeah, this is going to turn into higher cost services. Unless you take some of these, I guess, more narrow approaches to your certification.
Mm-hmm. I think we're going to talk about those next week.
We're going to talk about those next week. A little teaser. I think it's vitally important, especially for small companies who don't have deep pockets, which is like every small business, I think, to look at these kinds of options. So, it's not only going to affect subcontractors who are helping you with the manufacturing or servicing of a government contract, because it's all about protecting the government documentation from any angle of attack, if you will.
Yep. All right. Well, apart from, this discussion, how can you learn more about CMMC if you're really interested in getting into the nuts and bolts?
Oh my gosh. There are various websites where documentation can be downloaded for free. So it's kind of different from ISO because ISO charges money for their standards and documents. But all this documentation is free of charge because it's provided by the U.S. government. So our tax dollars pay for it. Right.
Doesn't mean they'll pay for the assessment. Just means they'll pay for the documents.
Exactly. The documents, The PDF. Wow, I get the PDF for free. So there you can go on the DoD's website. There's a CMMC portion of their website that has the standards. You can go on the NIST website to get the NIST standards. And then there's an organization called the CMMC accreditation body.
So you just add AB after that.
Yeah.
CMMC
Actually, I
AB.
think they've got a new name called the Cyber AB. They dropped CMMC. But so it's the Cyber AB website. That's the organization that's going to qualify the assessors.
Okay.
So if you want to know what your assessor is getting trained on and what they are going to look for, you can go on the Cyber AB website. Okay. I think it's cyberab.org or something like that.
That's a smart idea.
And read the answers to the test.
Yeah, basically.
But oh boy, you're talking about layers of information.
Yeah.
The easiest view of all this is the 110 from NIST.
Right.
And then each one of those 110 has pages of information to explain what's each one of them means.
I think it goes out to about 320 controls.
Yeah, 320 assessment objectives, the criteria that the assessor looks for.
Wow.
And then each of those are kind of explained.
Yeah.
And your eyes are spinning. This is that complexity piece I talked about earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
But CyberAB is a good source. And on their website, they have a page called the CMMC Web Marketplace. And that's where you can go find companies that are there to help you prepare for certification. Those are RPOs, registered provider organizations. Core Business Solutions is an RPO.
Yes,
We're
are.
listed on the CMMC marketplace. You can go look it up because we've gone through the qualification process to provide training and consulting and support for our customers. And then if you want to start investigating the assessors, ready for this acronym? They're called C3PAOs. Sounds a little bit like Star Wars.
A little Star Warsy, yeah.
Yeah. The Certified Third-Party Assessment Organizations. In the ISO world, they're called registrars or certification bodies.
Yeah,
CBs,
accredited
right?
certification bodies, yeah.
And the DoD had to make a bigger acronym out of the whole thing.
Of course, it's the government.
Yeah. So those are the. But if you want to start to investigate companies that could be your assessor, and you might even want to start talking to them about what those are going to cost and how you're going to schedule them and all that, you can find the list. Fortunately, there is a list, and they're on the CMMC marketplace on the CyberAB website.
Yeah, and since this is all new, C3PAOs are not going to be as readily available as perhaps a registrar.
The other thing under that comment, not as affordable.
Prevalent or affordable?
This is the supply and demand aspect of this. There are a few qualified assessors for 80,000 companies that are going to need the level 2 certification.
Wow.
So they're going to be in high demand.
Cha-ching.
And though I have talked to a couple of them who are going to target small businesses and have small business pricing.
Oh, that's great.
So I was shocked by that. I thought they'd all just try to gouge us, but they're not. And I recognize that there's a big investment for them, any company, to become a qualified assessor. So I'm not begrudging these, what they're going to charge, but I am glad to hear some of them are recognizing that a lot of the companies that need to get certified aren't going to be the deep pocket companies.
But it's still probably going to be more than if you were to do an ISO standard.
Oh, it's certainly.
Even if it's...
I would say if you're ISO certified and you know what your bill is there for every 3 years, that's the only positive side of this whole thing, is it's an assessment only every 3 years rather than every year. But if you know what you're paying every 3 years, 4 or 5 times that number is probably what you'll pay for this certification. Again, depending on scope, depending on whether you narrow down the how you protect CY and only a few people and a few computers are involved, the cost can dramatically come down.
Yeah. But you're also looking at it. This is unlike when you're looking at ISO standards. Most of them are not going to assess everything all at once.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this is
everything all at once.
Everything all at once.
Yeah.
Every time.
And it's several days of the assessments are several days long.
Yeah.
So buckle up, I guess is the point.
Yep.
Right.
Any other ways we can find out more information?
I would say engaging with a consulting firm is probably a key piece. Now it's going to sound like a commercial, and I don't mean for it to be. But the reason that the DoD set up the RPO program, Registered Provider Organization program, is so that there can be a large number of qualified consulting firms, training firms that can help companies prepare, help companies understand, help companies decide what path to go down. And a lot of engagements with consulting firms will start with a gap assessment.
Right.
So a gap assessment basically isn't a full certification assessment. That's not what it is. It's an abbreviated version that goes through your current setup and your current security protections and your current practices in terms of training and other aspects, and assesses whether or not you meet each of the 110 today. Right. It's great to go through and find that you're only meeting 32 requirements or 86 requirements or 109 requirements. I'd be shocked if anyone went through a gap assessment. They probably wouldn't need a gap assessment if they were at 109. But if you want to know where you are now and what's left to do and what path to take, a gap assessment from an RPO would be a great way to do that. And we provide gap assessments at a real affordable rate just to help companies get started. It's a great way to learn. I mean, I'd say that's the starting point for most companies. Yeah.
Well, Scott, this has been a great talk today. Lots of information. I know next week we're going to be talking about best strategies for complying with CMMC, which there are some, like you said, with narrowing down scope and things like that we'll get into. And I really want to thank you for being here today.
Yeah, you're welcome, X. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. And we want to thank everyone who's listened to our podcast today. We hope it's been informative for you. Now, if you're looking for more information about Core Business Solutions and how we can help you with ISO certification, cybersecurity, customized training, or CMMC, please email us at info@thecoresolution.com. You can also visit our website at www.thecoresolution.com. And if you haven't already followed us on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube, which is also where you can find our CyberHub podcast, which talks about CMMC, be sure to do so, and that way you won't miss the next Quality Hub podcast when it's released next week. Have a great day.